Penn State plays Villanova Saturday at noon at Beaver Stadium, and we'll get to that in a minute. But this edition of Nittany Next should probably be called Nittany Last because we can only deal with the Villanova game in the context of Penn State's 28-20 defeat of Auburn on Saturday. That win in a dense, dramatic game, raucous crowd means that Penn State has two wins over ranked opponents in its first three games for the first time ever. The Lions are ranked sixth in the country, and that may be a little optimistic, but nobody cares about the polls anyway, especially in September. Penn State did everything pretty well. The defense was as it's been. All of that stuff was pretty solid. But the game, I think, did amount to a huge step forward in terms of Penn State's overall execution of the passing game. In a couple areas stand out. One is the involvement of tight ends, who had 6 catches, 2 touchdowns, another big play that set up a third touchdown. And one of those touchdowns was a direct snap from the center to Tyler Warren, a tight end lined up in the backfield. Another piece was pass blocking. The offensive line has a lot of work to do in other areas, but in this area, they were excellent and did not allow a sack against an opponent with some big time athletes, some blitz packages. Very good defensive coordinator, Derek Mason, who knows James Franklin very, very well. So that was an excellent piece of this. And most importantly, I think Sean Clifford may have had his best college game. He was 28 for 32 with 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, seemed to make major progress in terms of field vision and decision making. The marriage of Clifford with offensive coordinator Mike Yurcich, that we've talked about so much, being a key to this season. So far, so good. James Franklin was fired up about this one, particularly so, and he talked a lot this week about what his club had to overcome to get that win, including, in his view and in a lot of people's view, the officiating from a Southeastern Conference crew that was, let's say, creative, and the distraction last week of people talking about the possibility of James Franklin going to USC. So this week's game is a much different challenge. You probably know Villanova for its basketball team, and it's good in football too at its level, which is nowhere near the level of the basketball team. Villanova is plays in FCS division of college football, which used to be known as 1AA. Plays in the Colonial Athletic Conference with James Madison, Delaware, teams like that. Villanova is 3-0. 2 of them are blowouts. They haven't committed a turnover yet. They're very sound. They're very well coached, and they're nowhere near Penn State's level athletically. The only way this is competitive is if Penn State doesn't show up. And Franklin has made prohibiting that an obsession, to his credit. His approach to these types of games, whenever possible, is to play a lot of people. Expect to see, if this goes as Penn State's planning it, expect to see 5 or 6 running backs, 6 or 8 wide receivers, a squadron of defensive backs, bunches of young players getting their feet wet on special teams, and perhaps importantly, some playing time for backup quarterback Taquan Robinson. This isn't really about Franklin being sportsmanlike and not wanting to run up the score. You may recall that in 2019, Penn State beat Idaho 79-7, and Franklin was practically pulling people out of the stands and putting them on the field in that game. Ideally, this would be a day for Penn State to work on its one clear weakness so far, which is run blocking and moving the ball straight ahead on the ground. That's going to be a big factor coming up in the next couple of weeks. Think of that trip to Iowa in 2 weeks. And that has to get better. That's the one area that you could identify as a weakness. I don't know how much of that kind of work can be done against this kind of opponent. More realistically, get everybody some reps, stay healthy. And I think that is a critical and underrated part of this season so far, is that the Lions appear to be one of the healthiest teams in the country. Saturday should be about taking care of what should be routine business and easing mentally, emotionally, physically into the meat of the schedule. That's it. This is Nittany Next. I'm Mike Gross for LNP and LancasterOnline.com.